Release date, November 1st, 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the TBD College Football Show with your hosts. I'm Mason.
I'm Joey.
And I'm Isaac.
Welcome to episode 13 of season 5. This is our week 10 preview. We're getting into November. November is for contenders. October is for pretenders. It's in the past now. Today is November 1st. We're here. And, man, things are getting dicey. We just saw LSU lose to Texas A&M. Texas survives Vandy. A lot of crazy things that happened last weekend for the playoff slate. And now we have a new undefeated team in the SEC in Texas A&M and a lot of other things. We're going to get to all that in just a moment. We're going to start out with our pick records. For those of you following along at home, here's what happened last week. In third place, week 9, my man Joey, he finally hit the 5-0 mark, picked every single game correct. He's now 27-23 in 6 games back. He's now the second one of us to go 5-0 in a week. I'm still waiting on that 5-0 week, which brings me to myself in second place. I went 3-2 last week for an overall of 32-18 and 1 game back. And Isaac, who is in first place, who also went 3-2 last week and is now 33-17 overall. Here are the best picks of the week. First off, myself and Joey, we had 2 of the best picks. We had A&M over LSU. Personally, I picked A&M over LSU only because it was at Kyle Field. I mean, I knew that LSU was going to come out and play well, but I thought that just because it was at the home of the 12th man, I thought they were going to show up, and they sure did. Joey?
There was only one team that was going into the game that was truly hot to the touch, and they had home field advantage. Both teams, don't get me wrong, both teams were looking really good going into the game, but I really felt like majority of the momentum was on Texas A&M's side. And starting out the game, didn't look like it, but it ended up taking into effect later on.
Isaac, tell us a little bit about what you think went wrong in that game. Tell us why you picked LSU, what you thought going into this game, and obviously how coming out.
So, of course, I picked the Tigers because it's A&M. I'm not gonna pick the Colt, right? I'm gonna pick the culture. Now, with that said, there's a lot that went wrong in that game. It was our failure to make adjustments in the second half. Once Elko pulled Wegman for Reed, that's where it started. And honestly, if it's kind of looking ahead to next week, that makes me nervous for Bama because Jalen Milroe can throw and run just the same. I don't know if he's as good as Reed just because Reed's a little bit more agile, but Reed ran all over us, failed to adjust defensively, and Garrett Nussmeier, he made multiple bad decisions. Probably the worst one was the little check down in which he threw it literally right to the spy. I don't know what that was. I hope I never have to know what that was, but a lot went wrong in that game, and I'm upset that we lost, but I mean, A&M looked good, and props to the Aggies.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get into it a little bit later, too, but, I thought that LSU had it won, honestly, when they went up 7-7 at the half, and then when they put Marcel Reed in, after that Garrett Nussmeier interception, I tell you what, that first interception really messed him up because he went on to throw 2 more. I think he had all the confidence in the world in himself, and he just got a little too confident, and he just started making mistakes after he threw that first pick. So it was just downhill from there. Kind of put together a little bit of a last couple minutes, comeback, and then he threw another interception. So, yeah, that was hard to watch for sure. The other best pick that we had was Notre Dame over Navy. Isaac, I just want you what went into your decision? I know last week you said that you picked a team off a gut reaction. Is that what it was this time?
Yeah, I mean, I really thought Navy had a better shot, but I severely underestimated Notre Dame. I severely overestimated Navy. I went with who I wanted to win, not who I thought admittedly, I probably went with who I wanted to win more than I went with who I actually thought would win. And Notre Dame played a great game. They beat the brakes off Navy. Not that Navy's not a good team, but Notre Dame made it clear that they were the better team on Saturday. And yeah, just a bad pick by me. I really wanted Navy to win. I really thought they had a shot, but severe underestimation of the Irish in that one.
Yeah, and I think we all did. I think we all wanted Navy to win. I mean, I think I even said, like, I hope I'm wrong, but I have to pick Notre Dame for the sake of my record. And because I picked that, I actually, stayed one game back. That helped me. So, Joey, what about you, man? What was your pick for Notre Dame?
Notre Dame was just the better team, hands down. I mean, I loved the run of Army Navy, and I hated that I saw it coming to an end. But I mean, going into that game, there was no way Notre Dame was going to lose that game. I didn't see Navy's defense holding up against a higher caliber offense. I won't say high caliber, but higher caliber offense that Notre Dame has, as well as Navy's offense being able to compete against a defense like Notre Dame's, who has taken them to national championships and playoff games before. So I just didn't see it ever being an outcome where Navy won, unfortunately.
Yeah, of course. I picked Notre Dame because I thought it was the safer pick. Honestly, I thought that they had the better team would come in. I even said that I thought, though, that Navy would cover the spread, and they absolutely did not. So, however, we can still root for them and Army's run in the American, because I think it would be amazing to get the Army-Navy game 2 weeks in a row. So the American Conference Championship becomes the Army-Navy game, and then just the following week we get the Army-Navy revenge game. So I think that would be awesome. Next one. Now we're moving over to Joey and Isaac. The first one was Alabama over Mizzou. Joey, you first again. What went into that pick?
To be completely honest, the Mizzou game against Texas A&M took all confidence I had, not only out of the defense of Mizzou, because that was out the window before the Texas A&M game, but the offense. Any sort of confidence I had in their offense being able to produce after that A&M game, I realized that maybe these guys aren't as good as we anticipated them to be, and maybe it's not the offense carrying the defense and carrying this team to wins. Did I think it was going to be a donut as their score against Alabama? Absolutely not. I thought there was going to be something. There was going to be some production. Now, did Cook's injury have something to do with that? Possibly. You can't really say. I mean, it happened later in the game, so
no, I mean, it still happened first half. It was unfortunate though, because he was actually playing on that hurt ankle, so he wasn't as mobile, but he wasn't playing horribly. But then he got his hand hurt, and that's why he left the game. So it sucked that it was like a second injury. I'll go ahead and say that I picked Missouri because I thought they were just going to want to have a statement game. Alabama had been struggling. Once again, did not expect that to be a shutout. But after Brady Cook went out, Drew Pine was just not the answer. Dude threw interception after interception after interception, and Alabama was just able to score points. So now the question is, does this define how good Alabama is? Personally, no, I don't think so. I think that this is actually about how bad Mizzou is. I mean, we just saw them 2 weeks ago get absolutely, thwopped by Texas A&M, and they honestly should have lost to Vandy too, but they didn't. So it'll be interesting. We're going to talk about this game in a couple of weeks for obvious reasons. But we got Alabama going to LSU. That one will be an interesting game, especially for the SEC race and playoff race, to be quite honest. So we'll see what happens there. Isaac, what about you? Mizzou over Bama, or Alabama over Mizzou?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I still have my reservations about Alabama. Lord knows I don't want them to bring their A game to Baton Rouge, even though I know they will. But Mizzou should have lost. Okay, first of all, they did get hammered by A&M, and they should have lost to Auburn, if we're being 100% honest. It took them till the last drive of the game to beat Auburn last week at Mizzou. Like, it's a home game. I don't want to throw Auburn under the bus, but I mean, it's not like it's Cam Newton era Auburn. It's not even Bo Nix era Auburn. It's like whoever the quarterback is.
Bo Picks Part 2 era.
Yeah, see, it's like it's not even. It's a different deal in Auburn. So, I mean, I had no faith in Mizzou, but I sure as heck thought they'd cover the spread. I really thought they would. They put up some offense because Alabama's not that good, but apparently Mizzou is just really that bad. Like I heard somebody say recently about the Raiders.
Truly.
It was apparently the Raiders are that bad, and Bryce Young was the only problem for the Panthers. So that's a fact. That's the same way with Mizzou.
Obviously, we all picked Oregon for obvious reasons. TBD triple pick there. We all got that win. Not a best pick, just an obvious one. But the last one is Texas over Vandy. And I don't even want to say that my pick was bad because I almost won. I was almost right. If Vandy gets that onside kick, dude, oh my gosh. Well, if Diego Pavia, I don't think that it was a correct decision to try that 4th and 2. Probably should have punted. I know that, Quinn Ewers was throwing dimes all day, but I think that they probably would have had a better chance with their defense getting the stop on 3rd down with 3 timeouts than, Vandy getting the onside kick. So I was almost right. Obviously, I didn't get it right, but what about you guys?
The reason I chose Texas really was that I thought they were going to be going into this game a little pissed off. Did I think that they were going to go into this game and still have similar issues that they did against Georgia? I didn't. And actually, it's very concerning. They still struggled with those issues. I really thought that that offense was going to end up showing up and, saying like, hey, that was a fluke. Like we're actually here. Yeah, Quinn Ewers was playing really well, but not a very productive offense. Defense, they did play well. They played well against Georgia too. Texas is not typically known to have a better defense than offense, though. So what's happening? Is it SEC? I don't know. Vandy played a really good game, and I didn't think it was going to be close. I thought it was just going to be one of those things where it was like, well, Texas had a bad game, but they're going to come back and show up. Turns out Vandy's not bad. So, yeah, I got lucky, I guess.
Well, I also just wanted to say, too, that Texas got, 2 touchdowns off 2 turnovers in the first half. And so, I hate saying well, if this hadn't happened, then because, this is the reason why we play this game on grass and not on paper, right? However, if that doesn't happen, the score's around 10-3 at the end of the first half, not, 21-10 or whatever it was. So, like you said, I thought Vandy played a great game, which is why I picked him because I thought they were that good. Diego Pavia, no matter I don't think Vanderbilt has anything to be, sorry about for this loss. Maybe a couple bad decisions, turnovers suck, but they played an amazing game against a really good opponent, and not this is the second time this season that they've done that. They didn't get the dub this time, but they don't have anything to feel sorry about. Isaac, what about you, man?
Yeah, similar to what kind of starting what Joey said. I thought Texas was going to come out angry after the loss to Georgia. And not that Vanderbilt's bad, but I really just thought Texas would outplay them. I thought Texas would put up a better game, but they still struggle with a couple things. And Vanderbilt, had Vanderbilt had more time and, well, of course, and the ball, it would have been a different game. Vanderbilt started out keeping it close early, and I was like, oh, I might have had this one messed up. I definitely thought Vanderbilt would cover the spread and I can't believe they were almost 20-point underdogs. But it turned out to be a really good game. But I went off the feeling that Texas was going to be angry and they were just going to outplay Vanderbilt, which I would argue they didn't down the stretch. So I would argue the clock was in their favor because they were able to close it out, and Diego wasn't able to get the ball back because Vanderbilt very, very well might have given you that pick, Mason.
Well, that's our picks for last week. Why don't we get into our picks for this week? Heck yeah, we're going to pick the biggest games of Week 10, starting out with our absolutely favorite segment, the Game of the Week. Isaac, why don't you tell the folks what the TBD CFB Game of the Week is?
Folks, our Game of the Week for week number 10 is going to be 4th-ranked Ohio State traveling to face the boys in Happy Valley, State College, PA. They're playing at 3rd-ranked Penn State at 12 p.m. on Saturday afternoon.
Okay, my first question. Why is this not a primetime game? I think we saw this a couple years in a row, but this game absolutely deserves to be primetime. This could be wide out, night game for Penn State. Instead, we're getting the noon slate, dude. It's absolutely ridiculous. Ohio State coming into this game favored in the spread by 4.5. ESPN FPI also gives them a 61% chance to win. Is Ohio State fraudulent, though? They're kind of the most expensive team in the country with the additions of Will Howard, Caleb Downs on defense, and of course the biggest one being Keenshawn Judkins and some others. But what do they have to show for it? They didn't play a Power 5 opponent until Week 5 against Michigan State. And of course they won. Then they go to Oregon, they get outplayed down the stretch, then they come out after the loss and almost lose to Nebraska off a bye week, mind you. Only won by 4, and Nebraska stayed in it. if they scored a touchdown on any one of their drives where they scored a field goal, because it was 14-9 for the longest time, so they finally did score a touchdown, it just, they may have lost this game. Penn State, though, they probably should have lost at USC, but they ended up with the W by field goal in overtime. Against Wisconsin, Drew Aller, he leaves the game in the second quarter with an injury, and James Franklin announced on Monday that Aller is still questionable, and it's too early to tell if Aller will be able to start in this game. So therefore, Bo Pribula, I hope I'm saying that right, will be taking first-team snaps. He's been taking first-team snaps this week. So how much does this really impact the game for Penn State? I mean, they were still able to beat Wisconsin by 14, but Ohio State is not Wisconsin. They've definitely struggled, but they're definitely a way better team. So Isaac, with the first pick this week, who do you got?
Let me just say, if there was ever a game that I didn't want to pick first, this is the one. I feel like it was a setup. I really do. But nonetheless, I let me say this.
The reason it's just how the rotation worked out, bro. Just how the rotation worked out.
Script writers going crazy. You know what I mean?
That would be me.
Let me say this. The reason this is not a primetime game, Mason, is because the TV networks, i.e. Fox for the big, they are tired of seeing Penn State lose this game. They've given Penn State and Ohio State the whiteout, a number of years. And every year, except for 2016, Penn State has lost this game. Has it been close? Most years. Some years not. That's why this is not a primetime game. I wish it was too. I'll be honest. I really do. But with all that said, this game's in Happy Valley. It's Saturday. It's a noon kickoff. The crowd will be rocking, but Drew Aller might be out. I'm really, really worried about Penn State. Listen, I want the Nittany Lions to win this game, but I'm going to go with the Buckeyes simply because Aller might be out and Penn State hasn't done anything to this point in the season to give me a reason to pick them. They almost lost to Bowling Green at home, and as a whole, they struggle year over year to put together a quality body of work. Listen, Penn State is a consistent 10-2 team, and the two games they lose every year are Ohio State and Michigan. This could be the year they change the script, but this is the week that we find out. I'm going to be pulling for Penn State. I hope I get this pick wrong. I hate Ohio State, but I've got the Buckeyes on Saturday in Happy Valley.
So what's crazy, too, just to your point, actually Penn State doesn't play Michigan this year because there's no divisions in the Big Ten with the additions of USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington. But obviously they do keep the game with Ohio State. Man, you're right. This one's tough. Man, it's really hard because I really want Penn State to win, but Ohio State just has the money team right now. And I think maybe they struggled against Nebraska as a little bit of a trap game. So unfortunately, I'm going to be with you. I'm going to have to take the Buckeyes here. I got Ohio State in this one. If Drew Aller plays, I think that this could definitely go in Penn State's favor with it being at home. Crowd's going to have to show up and be loud for a noon game, though. You got to be electric. You got to, have an impact on the game. Crowd noise is such a big thing in this sport. I mean, I was thinking about this today, but I feel like college environments are so much more hostile than any type of NFL environment. They're just louder. It means more to the students. There's more bragging rights involved. A lot of money being poured into this activity, this sport. So give me Ohio State, and I think I'm going to take them to cover too. I think they win by at least 6.
To be completely honest with you, I'm gonna look at the numbers a little bit. I mean, you got Ohio State, who's within the Big Ten, third in passing defense, Penn State being 6th. Rushing defense, Ohio State 2, Penn State 3. The issue is when it comes to offense, Ohio State being 5th in passing offense, Penn State being 7th. And then, rushing the ball, Penn State, that's what they're known to do, being 3rd, and then Ohio State being 4th. Now, you take Drew Aller out of that scenario, possibly. But my issue is this. I think when it comes down to it, the passing defense is what loses Penn State the game because Ohio State has some weapons at wideout. And yes, you're 6th in the Big Ten, but that's a big difference. And you don't have a passing offense with Drew Aller, really. And then you take him out. So I got Ohio State in this. If Drew Aller doesn't play, I think that Ohio State could beat the spread, really. bad. But I hope not. I hope Penn State wins because I'm tired of Ohio State, but I got Ohio State in this game.
And I think the majority feeling for all of us is that we would all be 100% okay with getting this pick wrong. Ohio State is, Joey being a Clemson fan obviously has some hate for Ohio State. Isaac being an LSU fan, I think it's just the bias that they get. It's the same thing with me, man. I'm cool with it. I made my peace with it in 2022 when we beat them in overtime, or when we beat them in the Peach Bowl on that missed field goal at midnight. Such a special time. Still love that moment. But I think that's the general consensus here.
Our next game is Duke versus number 5 Miami at 12 p.m. Spread being Miami at -20. And then, of course, ESPN, FPI in Miami's favor as well. Very common question is Miami fraudulent? Getting at least 3 wins where, they probably shouldn't have even counted as wins. They were really looking at 3 losses until, the referees got involved. You got VT where everybody knows now the touchdown that was called back and called incomplete where there was no video evidence whatsoever. And then California giving up over 20 points in the fourth quarter to end up losing the game. Now, California turns out to be pretty bad, being 4-4 overall, and
right, but they missed that targeting call, which probably would have set them up in the field goal range, which would have put them ahead by 2 scores and not 1.
Yeah. You also have Miami versus Louisville, which was a very close game, and I don't think we were really shocked by that because Louisville does have a good offense. And really Louisville, if they had a defense, could have really won. But, when you can't stop the freaking run, then yeah, you're going to lose the game. Meanwhile, Duke, winning 6 turnovers, winning the turnover margin against SMU, and still managing to lose is my favorite of this past weekend. And, that's a great way to go into a weekend when you have to play a top 5 opponent in Miami. Duke played a really good game against SMU. SMU does have a pretty good offense. I will give them that. Duke's defense really stood up and was like, you're not getting past us, at least not that much. But, the offense just could not produce. Really, it kind of turned into last year's offense where they ran the ball a lot, and then if they got lucky, they got some good passing plays in there. Mason, what do you got?
Well, I wanted to ask you a question first with you, being our resident ACC guy. It seems truly that the ACC has made some business decisions in favor of Miami to keep their undefeated season going, to keep that team in the playoff hunt. So my question for you right now, though, is do you think that the ACC higher ups or in the front office, wherever they may be, do you think that they have more confidence right now in Miami being able to make a playoff run than they do in Clemson? And this is a legitimate question because Joey is a Clemson fan. I'm not making fun. I'm dead serious. Because it seems like they really have been trying hard to keep Miami in the race.
Confidence is, I don't know if they have more confidence. I think it really comes down to what can bring us more money. And at the end of the day, the big hoopla drama with Clemson is Dabo's not bringing in transfers, right? The number one destination for besides freaking Florida State, the number one destination to go in the ACC to transfer to, Miami. And if Miami's good, a lot of people are going to want to transfer there. They got a good head coach. I'll give them that. They got a good head coach. And you know what? If their quarterback wins Heisman, you know what? We're putting out Heisman talent here. You can transfer here. You could be a Heisman winner, right? You can be in Miami, Florida, nice weather, beautiful beaches, a lot of terrible distractions there. But I think that's more what goes into it is what brings us the most money, what can bring us in the most talent, because I think the ACC is definitely focused in on win now mentality. You see the Big Ten and the SEC bringing in a lot of transfers, great talents from other schools outside of the Power Four. ACC really has been you develop at the school you're at or you transfer out. Yes, Clemson has been a great team who develops their players, not really touches the transfer portal, but that doesn't bring money. So I think that's more so the case. I genuinely think a lot of people are more confident that Clemson would win out and have a better playoff run, only because of the experience in that as well. Miami doesn't really have that kind of experience. They do have good talent, but they just have more marketing value.
I really like that. That makes a lot of sense. Just do us a favor and beat them in the ACC championship, okay? All right. Anyway, yeah. So my pick for this one, it's going to be pretty straightforward. I just want to say I think Duke is actually a really good team this year. Only loss being to Georgia Tech. They've actually played pretty well. Malik Murphy, he actually has 1,796 yards. He's got 17 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. He actually has the same amount of interceptions that Cam Ward has, 5. It's just that Cam Ward has 1,000 more yards than him and 7 more touchdowns. So yeah, it's not going to be. I don't think this is going to be much of a game. I think Duke. I'm going to take Miami to win, but I'm going to pick Duke to cover. I don't think this is a 20-point win for Miami. I think Duke is a tough physical team. I definitely, don't get me wrong. I think Miami's going to win by at least 14, but I don't think they win by 20. Give me Miami to win. Give me Duke to cover.
I can understand where you're coming from. I think though that Duke had a really rough loss against SMU, and I think that it really shows that if you're winning the turnover margin by 6 and you're still losing the game, granted you brought it to overtime, granted you had a blocked field goal. He did miss one before that though. So, you can make all the excuses, but you know what? There are 6 other qualities that should have led to you winning, and they didn't. How did you benefit from the 6 turnovers? Well, by you losing, you didn't. Meanwhile, Miami would take advantage of that. And again, Duke has a good team. They're just not that good. I don't think Miami's all that great. I mean, their defense isn't. Going up against Louisville, it shows that. Their defense isn't, but their offense is a lot better than an SMU or a Georgia Tech. So I definitely got Miami in this one. A 20-point spread is wild, but I will say that Miami's going to cover it because, again, we've seen it a lot this season. If an offense cannot perform, the defense tends to suffer from it. And I think that will be the case in this game.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and make it a TBD triple pick. I've also got the Canes on Saturday in Miami, but I also like Duke to cover a 20-point game. There have been too many instances this year where Miami should have won big against teams that really, no disrespect, but they're not great. Like, if Miami had any sort of defense, they would have probably beaten Louisville handily. It's my opinion. I mean, Louisville has good offense, but the reality of it is you put up 45 points in the second half between the two of you. You just don't have a defense. That's just what it is. So with that said, Duke I think has had an okay defense this year. UNC, to go back to like the Duke and UNC game at the end of September, UNC is not a great team either, but they were up 20-0 in Durham in the third quarter, and Duke scored 21 unanswered. And got the win, over the last 18 minutes of football, they scored 21 straight. You don't do that without having some kind of defense. And again, I know UNC's not that great offense or whatever. And I know that JMU dropped a 70 burger. I get it. But again, I think Duke's defense, I think Duke's actually a pretty good team this year. I didn't know what they'd look like in Durham after Mike Elko's departure, but they look pretty good. I like Duke to cover. I like Miami in this one, though. I think Miami gets the win, probably about 2 touchdowns. But I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be entertaining. And, we'll see what happens with Miami. They've got to prove themselves against a good team, and this is a chance to do it against a team that's, not a 5-star caliber, but they're pretty good in Duke. That's going to take us to our next game here in week number 10, and it's going to be number 1 ranked Oregon traveling to the Big House. That's right. The Ducks are going to Ann Arbor, Michigan at 3:30 p.m. on Saturday. The ESPN FPI is giving Oregon a 78% chance to win this game, and the spread officially has Oregon by 14.5. That's pretty large considering the venue. Oregon is coming off their fifth straight Big Ten win against Illinois. Michigan coming off a bounce-back win against Michigan State, their rivals from East Lansing, after a tough loss to Illinois just a couple of weeks ago by the Blue. Michigan offensively has had no identity this season. They've gone through 3 quarterbacks. On the other hand, Oregon has been playing lights out on both sides of the ball. But the spread's only 14.5. That's kind of a shock. This game is at the Big House, like I just said a while ago. It's a tough place to play, and Oregon now has to travel from the West Coast to, I guess Michigan's considered the Midwest. I don't know, honestly, which they just did 2 weeks ago against Purdue, and they throttled Purdue. I didn't necessarily think they would stomp on Purdue as hard as they did, but they did. They wore them out. Now, with that said, we could talk about Happy Valley. We could talk about Tiger Stadium. We could talk about Bryant-Denny, all these places. But the Big House in Ann Arbor is the biggest stadium in college football. It's loud. It's heated. They're passionate for the maize and blue. And if Michigan comes prepared, we could be in for a game. I'm not going first. Joey, who you got?
Yeah, I don't see this being a close one. I genuinely think Oregon's going to blow the lid off of Michigan. I'm still down to it. We don't know who is better out of the 3 quarterbacks who have started or who have played for Michigan. And the cover athlete, Donovan Edwards, every year is his year. It still hasn't happened. I think Oregon definitely wins, and Michigan just has to really reconsider, maybe try cheating again. I don't know.
To piggyback on that, it is funny that Michigan, like they were supposed to be the guys for a few years, and then finally there's a scandal and they win a natty. It's just interesting. I don't have any hard feelings about Michigan, at least assuming they don't flip LSU commit Bryce Underwood with $1 million in NIL money.
Just watch the documentary and make your own decision.
Right, exactly. With that said, I've also got the Ducks in this one. I think it could be a game. I don't know that I'd like Oregon to cover, but honestly, I think they really could. It's hard to say because Michigan can be so up and down at times. I thought Michigan had a good shot against Washington just a few weeks ago, but Oregon, again, they beat Ohio State down the stretch, and they absolutely, just ran Purdue into the ground. 35-0, a shutout against the Boilermakers. I like Oregon in this one. I think they have a chance to cover. I don't know that they will, but easily a double-digit win, probably 10. This will be a good one. The Ducks, they look good, and college football seems to be in a good place when Oregon's at the top. So I've got the Ducks in this weekend.
Gonna have to disagree with that last one there. However, I do have the Ducks in this one. I am going to take Michigan to cover. I think that for a game like this, teams can just show up when they need to. Take Vandy, for instance. When they struggle against Ball State last week, but they've already beaten Alabama, and then they almost beat Texas. I think Michigan's going to be in the right headspace. It's in their house. They got to play Oregon. Oregon's got to come to them, though. They got to play in their stadium, and it's big and it's loud. But I do think that the Ducks win. I'm with Isaac. I think that the Ducks win by about 10. But I think that Michigan keeps it close for a while until the Ducks are able to pull it away near the end. But yes, Oregon to win, Michigan to cover. Now we're going to move on to an SEC matchup, a team we talked about earlier. We got number 10 Texas A&M versus South Carolina at 7:30 p.m. Little night game at Williams-Brice. ESPN FPI has A&M favored to win 54%, and the spread is in A&M's favor as well by 2.5. A&M, they're going on a tear through the SEC this year. The lone undefeated team in the conference, like we mentioned earlier, after taking down LSU at Kyle Field on Saturday night. Their one loss is to Notre Dame in week 1, and now they're a top 10 team, so they're looking good. South Carolina, they're sitting at 4-3, but if we're really being honest, they should probably be 6-1 with wins against Bama and LSU. But alas, the refs, field goal kickers, and overthrows killed that dream. The last time the Aggies came to Columbia, they actually got beat 30-24. And if you tell me that Beamer doesn't have his team fired up right now after those losses to LSU, Ole Miss, and Bama, I'd think you were absolutely crazy. We've seen Beamer do this before. We talk about 2022 with Tennessee all the time. They won 63-39. 63-39 against the number 5 team in the country with Hendon Hooker. And yes, he injured his ACL, but that was late in the game. South Carolina had that game won. It was like every single drive that night resulted in a touchdown except for one that ended in a punt. Crazier things have happened. It's an underrated atmosphere. I'd say that it's probably the most underrated atmosphere in the SEC. I've been. It's loud, it's hectic, it's exciting. The fans are passionate. They've got this loud, annoying rooster that crows on third down. And if you're sitting under the speaker section, oh my gosh, it is awful. I mean,
Dead Cockroach Stadium.
Yes, dude. You listen. This is not where you'd want to be, and if I was A&M, this is the last place that I'd want to come with an undefeated conference streak on the line. Luckily for A&M, though, they have an extremely mobile quarterback named Marcel Reed. They also have an extremely sneaky fast back named Le'Veon Moss. I think this is actually a tougher game, and I think that A&M is going to have to pay attention and take South Carolina seriously because I know this team is fired up. I know they're going to want this win. I know that they've been looking for that big home win all season that they just haven't been able to grab yet. And I think it's going to be an interesting game. This is a tough one to pick. Unfortunately, Isaac, you got to go first. So you got.
Well. Picking first in a tough game that could be in favor of the team that just beat mine. This is a great week. This game, I agree. South Carolina should be 6-1. They should have beat us. They should have beat Alabama. Had things just gone a little bit differently. Kickers and the quarterback, in the end zone, all the things, especially against Bama. They got the onside kick. Like, that was incredible. This will be a tough game. I do not envy Texas A&M trying to maintain that top spot in the SEC against South Carolina team that wants to, obviously, would love nothing more than to put a number in that second slot on their record. A&M's favored by 2.5, 54% on the FPI. This one's really tough. I am going to hope that South Carolina wins. But, man, it's really tough to pick against A&M after what I saw last weekend. I'm going to go with the Aggies. I can't use the other term that I like to use for them. I've got the boys from College Station to get the win in Columbia Saturday night, but it will be close. I like them to cover. It's a close game anyway, probably 3 points, maybe a touchdown, but it's a one-score game. I like the Aggies. I hope I'm wrong. I do not want Texas A&M to win this game, but unfortunately, I think they will.
Yeah, this one is really tough, especially after seeing how well Marcel Reed played. As soon as he comes in first play, they got an interception on defense, and they're at the 9-yard line. Immediately takes the quarterback run into the side for the touchdown, and then he just went off having an amazing night, ran all over the at LSU defense. However, this game is not at home. This game is on the road. We have not seen Marcel Reed yet. I don't think on the road. So this is going to be his first test on the road, and he's coming into an extremely tough, harsh environment in Columbia. Give me the Cox, man. I'm going to take South Carolina in this one. I think it's going to be a close game, but I think they pull away with this one by one. Last time that Texas A&M came, they lost. I'm going to take South Carolina. I think that, like I said, Shane Beamer is going to have this team fired up, and I think that they're going to get this win on Saturday night. Give me Shane Beamer and the Cox in this one.
Can we take a second? There's two little sidebars here that I got to take a second for. First of all, if Texas A&M, is everybody in agreement that if Texas A&M wore those black uniforms with the script helmets, it would be the sickest thing ever? I think they were the nicest uniforms I've seen in a while. Second of all, the way people talk about this game right here, Texas A&M going into South Carolina, does it sound like Texas A&M really deserves to be that one undefeated team in the SEC? Isn't that kind of crazy to think that they are the lone standing undefeated SEC team, technically the number one SEC school right now, and yet everybody's talking about they're gonna lose to South Carolina? Meanwhile, LSU going into South.
Who have they played? I mean, yeah, you could say LSU, but it was at home. But who have they played? They haven't played Bama.
Yeah.
They haven't played Texas. They haven't played Oklahoma. They haven't played Georgia. I mean, really, the only like top team in the SEC. I mean, they haven't even played Ole Miss. The only, I mean, it's like they all of a sudden got the SEC East schedule that Georgia's had the last 3 years, and they haven't even played Tennessee yet. Like I said, no Tennessee, no Oklahoma, no Alabama, no Georgia, no Texas. Like, they've got to play somebody eventually. I mean, sure, LSU was somebody, but this is not the best LSU team that we've had in the last couple of years. So that's another thing. I think this Texas team is untested. Not to go back to my pick, because I know this is your pick, but you decided to bring up the sidebar. I don't really think they've played anybody yet. So yeah, that's why I think that. I mean, I don't really think they deserve. Like, I mean, yeah, because they've played every SEC team and beaten them. However, what SEC team have they actually played that's worth their salt besides LSU?
Yeah, I mean, this is tough. South Carolina, they got a good defense, man, and I would say good offense, but sellers keep selling. So when it comes down to it, Texas A&M, great offense as of right now. They got the momentum going in. But is Shane Beamer pissed off? Probably a little bit. It's at South Carolina. Honestly, I'm probably going to have to go with, this is tough. Drum roll, please. Who do I go with? Isaac? And then if Mason's right, then the gap gets a little larger. Or Mason and the gap just stays the same. You know what? I got to go A&M for the, they're just the ranked team. I can never choose a team that chants Go Cox. That's all. Our next game is number 18, Pittsburgh versus number 20, SMU at 8 p.m. The spread has SMU at -7.5, and the ESPN FPI, surprise, surprise, is in SMU's favor. SMU coming off a extremely close game in which, I don't think they won it. I think Duke lost it. I mean, 2 missed kicks, one being a block kick that would have sealed the game, ended the game, but you know what? It got blocked. They went into overtime, in which, yes, SMU scored pretty much immediately. I think it was immediately, actually. And Duke decided, you know what? We're going to do the same thing, but you know what? We're going to go for 2 instead of tying it and going into double overtime, and they failed. So, shocker. Anyways. If you need a little recap, there you go. Meanwhile, Pitt is coming off an absolute beatdown on Syracuse, winning 41-13, which, you know what, a lot of people are saying, it's Syracuse. But, well, Syracuse isn't necessarily bad. They're just not necessarily good. They're the middle of the pack. Pitt looking good. That run game, Desmond Reed, shout out Western Carolina University. He is a transfer from there. Now, Pitt's defense is extremely good. And you know what? That could be a concern for SMU, who had 6 turnovers against Duke. Again, I don't think they won it. I think Duke lost it. Pitt, of course, being undefeated, and SMU, their only loss being against BYU, only by 3 in week 2. But that loss seems to be pretty good considering BYU's top 10. Mason, who you got going this game?
So you've literally got the team who just turned the ball over 6 times offensively coming up against the team who just caused 5 turnovers against Syracuse on defense. They got 4 interceptions, 3 of them run back for pick sixes. I mean, I'm watching this game like, dude, is Kyle McCord ever going to throw to one of his own guys? And I mean, he did have a couple interceptions too that batted up passes. When we had a discussion about that at the beginning of the season, actually, whether or not they should go against the quarterback. Kind of decided that it should go. It should go on the quarterback if it's a clean interception. But if he throws into coverage and it gets bobbled, it's anyway. Man, I think that's a really big stat, though. I think that it's you have a team who is prone to turning the ball over versus a team who is prone to getting turnovers. I think Pitt's the tougher team here. Give me Pitt to win. With the spread being 7.5, I definitely think obviously if I'm picking Pitt, they're going to cover. So I got Pitt to win and cover. But I think Pitt, honestly, probably wins by 14. I think it's that kind of game. This game is at SMU. That's pretty much the only thing in its favor. I think that, Desmond Reed is a dog. Eli Holstein, dog. I think that, even in the games that where they've gotten shut down, like when they played UNC, their defense really did shut down a lot of what Pitt was trying to do and made it a close game. But Pitt was still able to come out on top. So, I think that, they've kind of had that gritty win that's given this some experience. And I think they're going to need it this week because I think it's going to be a close one until the end where Pitt's going to come out with it. So give me Pitt to win.
Yeah, this is a tough one. I mean, at SMU, Pitt, again, who have they played yet? Not necessarily anybody exciting yet. I mean, West Virginia, Syracuse, who else? No one really. But, SMU, great loss against, not a great loss. I wouldn't put it that way, but they had a close loss against BYU, who is currently in the top 10. Whether we believe that is right or not wrong, because the AP is kind of nuts right now, I'm going to go ahead and say Pittsburgh in this game, only because I feel like SMU is on a little bit of a downhill slide. I will also say I'm probably picking Pitt because I need SMU to lose. So then it's Clemson, Miami on top of the ACC. There's no tiebreaker for the second place thing. And I really don't want Pitt to win because then they have momentum going into the game against Clemson. But I'm not too worried about that. So...
Yeah, so I've gone back and forth all episode. I've kind of glanced down at this game because honestly, I haven't known which way to go. I really, Mason, the boys can tell you, especially Mason, that I had Syracuse on Thursday night against Pitt, and I was very, very sorely mistaken. I don't plan on making that mistake again. Give me the Panthers on Saturday, a TBD triple pick. Also, shout out Eli for that was my transfer QB in CFB 25, won a natty with me at LSU. So he holds some records now in the video game. So Eli's a dog. I like Pittsburgh in this game, probably by a touchdown, maybe 10. Give me a TBD triple pick. I like Pitt to go into Texas and get this win. So, yeah, give me the Panthers.
Sweet, guys. So we picked the same on every game except for Texas A&M, South Carolina. So come back next week to see how we do. Of course, this is the end of our show, unfortunately. However, we're so glad that you guys decided to join us and talk some college football with us because we absolutely love doing it. And if you would do us a favor, go check us out on social medias at TBD CFB. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. Post some awesome content over there. So if you love football, go check it out. And if, you want to follow along with us, we try to post we post our picks for these games. We post our pick records on there, and we post our own rankings too. So go out and check it. And then please, if you're watching this video on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. It helps get this out to more people.
And always remember,
no matter what team you pull for, if you're on God's side, you're always on the winning team. Just know there's a Father in heaven who loves you, who created you, who wants to have a relationship with you. The gospel basically works like this. In the Bible, it says that for the wages of sin is death, and what a wage is something you're owed. And for your sin, you sinned against the Most High God, just like we all have. We sinned against the Most High God, and we owed death for it. But Jesus, in his love for us, stepped in our place, died for us, paid that debt. And all you have to do, the Bible says that all you have to do to be saved, confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that he was raised from the dead and you shall be saved. And we just believe that everybody should be saved. We believe that everybody should believe this, believe in Jesus, repent and believe the gospel. For, it literally changed all of our lives. We were all saved by Jesus. We've all gone through a lot of different things that could have ended our lives. And, we trusted Jesus and he redeemed it. He will redeem you from the pit. I promise. If you don't have him, you need him. We just thank you guys so much for listening. Once again, please like and subscribe because we'd love to get the gospel message out to even more people. And, we're praying for our listeners. And guys, we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Later.